Hello and welcome to the AC Design art videos. Today's video is a watercolour painting tutorial of Apple Blossom, and the tutorial is carried out by our award-winning artist Amanda. The video is split into two episodes and you can watch the second part by clicking on the link below. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel and you'll be able to watch more tutorials by Amanda. If you have any questions or any comments about this video or what you'd like to see in future videos, please leave them in the comments section below. Okay, with that intro over, let's get started.
Welcome back. Today I'm going to do this picture of the flower. It's a topical, seeing as it's spring, so I thought we'll do this, and then after that I will do the seascape that I promised earlier on. Now, there's very little colour in this picture, so for the pinks, does it really matter what colours you're using as long as your tone's right? So I have chose quinacridone red, quinacridone pink and permanent alizarin crimson, which I've placed in this section. Now the only other colours we need for that is these browns. So I've just gone for permanent brown, undersea green, permanent sap green and gold ochre. But again, it doesn't matter what colours you need. It's just as long as you've got the tone right. You could do the whole thing in blues or purples and it'd still look okay. So I'm going to start with the flowers. And this is the smooth professional watercolour that I'm using here. I'm going to start here. Anything that is darker can go on top. So I don't have to paint these. If they were yellow and the background was like a different colour, I would have to start with the stamens, but in this case I don't. It's all darker, so I'm just going to take plenty of clean water and wet the whole area there. So plenty of water. Now this is this real good paper that keeps the water on a long time, so it actually allows me to do more than one petal at a time. With flowers it's always the same. Your flower has different petals. If you want to keep that, do them separately. If you want them as one big blob, you do it as one big blob, but I think it's always better to do it this way. So this is the quinacridone pink I'm using here, and it is the light. It doesn't matter which colour you're going, as I said, but it's very pale. You see how it just slips in. I'm not trying to make it the same colour as that. I'm just wanting to make it my version of this, my pink. And these are the pinks I chose because I haven't got to use them before, so let's just use them. So there we go. That's the shading round the edge. See how very, very little paint that you need every time here. Here, we'll do the same. Put it right in, all the way there. Now what I'm waiting for now is this paint to soak in a bit so that I can do some more shading. Okay, just the edge. I've wet it carefully so it won't seep into anything else, only the bits I've wet. Now this bit isn't close to that, there's a good space there, so I will wet that one as well. Just all the way around there to the tip. This is a very delicate flower. I think this is why I like this flower. So as I go along there again, just shaping that one. Now there's a bit more tone here. Now you see, if I put it on just now, it will smudge or spread too much. This is what you're waiting for all the time, the optimum time to put on that darker bit, which is why I'm waiting here. I'll just smooth that round a bit, won't make any difference there. So this is the alizarin crimson I'm using now to do the shading. Let's try, this is the first bit. Now you see, as I put that in there, you can see how far it spreads. It doesn't spread too much, it just spreads the right amount. Now, if you have got your timing slightly wrong and it's not quite dry enough and it spreads too far, just stop a minute. Won't matter, just stop a couple of minutes. Now I've got this brown and I'm putting the tiniest bit of brown into the pink just to give me more tone in there. You see how it harmonises? Because I'm only going to use the same colours throughout the whole picture, it will harmonise. If you use too many different colours, that's when you get into trouble. So choose your colours right from the beginning. You want a nice soft edge here, or a sharp edge, but soft, delicate. So as I go along there, you see, I'm just putting the tip of the brush. You're only painting ever with the tip of the brush. There, and you get a nice shape to your leaf. I'm trying to avoid putting a background on this. This is lovely as it is. So if I can have just enough pink in there, I won't need a background. Now, I'm just going to put a bit more of the same pink, this time without the brown, the pink I used to start with. And just some little lines in there, just to give you the texture. In the direction, always, of the petal, like that. I'll go into this one. Again, this is the pink with a slight bit of brown. The tiniest bit of brown in there. And round the edge, so I get a lovely crisp edge. This is hot pressed paper, which means that there's no texture on it. Great for doing flowers, not so good for doing things like seascapes or that type of thing. It doesn't work as well. So when we come to do the seascape tomorrow, I will change papers. You see that sharp edge again? In there. Now this is if it just drops on like that and doesn't spread any more than that, that is the optimum time to put on your paint, because you're controlling exactly where it's going. You know what a control freak I am. I like it to go where I want it to go. So in here, there we go, we can get that nice dark bit, and you see this time it doesn't spread, it just goes where I want it to go. There we go, like that. And sharp, tiniest bit round the edge there. Now, I've wet and cleaned my brush. Now I'm drying it against my hand, so I now know how wet that brush is. I always use skin, never use a cloth, because I can't tell from there how wet that brush is. But this way, just by the feel of it on my skin, I know exactly how wet it is, and there's no nasty surprises when I put that in there. Here we go. So these ones are still a little bit wet, so I'll come over to this one. So the same just wet the whole thing, one petal at a time, let it soak in. So the more careful you are when you're putting in that water, I've got a water drop there, just get rid of that. The easier things are. So this one here, it's in two sections. So I'm going to paint one section and then the other section. It's always easier if there is a line to make sure you keep to that line. So we can do that one and we can do this one. Same time. In pink colour. So just, it's usually easiest to go the way the petals go, and if the petals going that way, that's the best way to paint it. Well, when I say the best, it means it does the work for you, which is always good in my eyes. So this one, up, like that. Which other one did I do this one? So this side is very delicate. Hardly any paint in there, just that edge. So I'll add a little bit of that brown, a bit of Alizarin crimson together. Tiniest amount of paint. Just so I can get that line in. Very delicate line along there. And that means I won't have to put any edging on it. No background whatsoever. Again, wet and dry. I'll just blend this in like that. You want to avoid going back to it. If you go back, you'll get lines. So it's always the best idea if you can possibly do it in one go. Go a bit more water again. This wetting and drying and blending, great technique. Very soft and gentle there. Here as well, I was going to add some more Alizarin crimson because we do get a slight difference in colour in this part. Yeah, that's it. So that will give the depth there. And nice sharp line there because that's the light bit. So in this bit, very little in this bit, it just needs a few little lines going along there. Right, so it's not quite dry. I always use this part of my hand to check if it's dry. It's more sensitive than your fingers, which are in water all the time. We'll come back down to these ones. These ones should be fine now. So that's the base colour going on there. Pink, tiny bit of brown again, Alizarin crimson, and just drop that in there. I've drawn all this in, drawn where I want the light bits and the dark bits. If you've put them in the right place, you're not going to see any of those pencil lines. But don't worry about the pencil lines. Just the tiniest bit, see, just along the edge. Your lovely sharp edge, and again, wet, dry, blend. So that red and brown we'll need for in there anyway. So I have that a bit more dark at the bottom because I don't want to have to go back to it. The cherry blossoms in there. This one again. If you've drawn it right, it's already in your head. You're already looking for these bits. If you don't draw them in, you think, oh, I'll just paint them in. You won't, because your brain has already disregarded them. So when it comes to doing the painting, you've got the paint running, you've got everything else happening. You won't put in all these details. But if you've drawn them in, it's in your brain already. even if you're going to paint over them and you're never going to see them, that's not the point. The point is it's already in there. So I'll get another nice delicate one done here. That one will be dry now. How long it takes to dry, it depends on a lot of factors. How warm the room is. I'm doing this now because the sun doesn't come over here for another hour, so I'm hoping to get the painting done, or most of the painting done before that, because if the sun's fluctuating, we actually can't see what I'm doing at all. And if my next door neighbour decides he's going to do his grass again, which seems to take him over an hour, we're going to have to abandon till tomorrow because you can't hear anything. I think he must have got the lawnmower from a museum. Okay, so here there's a bit too much water on there, so it's spreading. So what I'm doing is wetting, drying my brush like that, so I know how dry it is, and then simply blending it like that. You never see me using a bit of paper, towel, anything like that, because what I want at all points is to make this uniformly wet. So it's all wet, the paint will spread the way, because it's wet, in a uniform way. You then go and take a piece of paper, cotton wool, any of these things that I've seen used. You've got an artificially dry bit. So the science of it is, instead of it being uniformly wet, one part of it is drier, and that affects your painting. That makes things more difficult to control. Just use your hand, it washes. Yeah, so that's colours just the bit with the brown. Tiny bit with the brown there. Oh dear, this bit here I've got a line. It's not dry yet, so I'm wetting the whole thing. That's important. You can't just wet one little bit, you need to wet a line. If you don't, you will get a line. So that's just so it's seen in the right time there. Now that happens because there's a bit too much water on that, I think. So we can always go darker. If you go darker, you can fix it. Don't try to scrub it off and start again. You just damage your paper. Just keep an eye on that. Now normally I would be moving my pad, but I've been told that I keep moving it out of shot. So I'm trying to do it all in one. Now this petal, there's one big petal. So in this case we can do it as one big petal because that's what it looks like. It's only if you do the whole thing as one flower. The only option you've got then is to stick lines on it to try and separate them. Paint does that for you, you don't need to bother. I'm all for the easy option. So as I come down here, I'm just adding a little bit of colour just so I can see what I'm doing, so I don't move the pad again. This was a bit more Arizona crimson here and a tiny bit of brown at the bottom. So we'll get this darker effect there. Close up to there, because that is the line. And we want that light bit to shine out, so just tiny, delicately put that in there. Again, a little bit more dark at that bottom. Always dries lighter, remember. Now, this bit here needs to be quite dark. So what I'm really doing is putting more paint. So there's less water in the pigment at this point. Go. And that gives me the depth in that bit there. Wet, dry, blend it into the other wet. This bit's still wet up at the top. Just putting a bit more water on there just to spread that out, because that part was a bit too dry. If one part of your petal or paper is wet and another bit is dry, that's when you get these cauliflowers, which can look okay, but better if you are actually controlling them and they're not just an accident, because they can ruin your picture. Now at the moment that looks a bit too dark, but it won't once we've drawn it, we've got it all dry. This bit here. Just a little bit more of the brown in here. There. We'll leave that one just now. The bud. Very simple, just get that one in there. Now this is the darker one. You need that dark enough to make that show. So, a little bit more of that brown in it. And I'm wetting it this time and painting in the same. So the base colour's going in there right at the beginning. Very delicate round the edge. When you're putting on watercolour, put the edge on first. Don't let it dry, and then come back down. You can fill in the middle. But just don't let that edge dry, that's the secret. There we go, see how easy it spreads? So although I'm putting colour in, this is also the water phase. So this part is going to have to just soak in a little bit. And this one, it's the same colour in the middle, then it gets lighter. So to do that, I'll put in that first colour there. So that colour's the same, and then bleed it out. There's a bit there. So then we can put the detail on there. A little bit at a time. sure you get nice edges. That bit in there is the same colour, and so I'll just pop that in there. It needs to be dark there for that bit to stand out, so just get that bit in there. Okay. Well, that's drying. I'll just put a little bit of that brown in. A bit more detail there. Okay. Right, these ones are far enough away, so I suppose I'll get away with doing this as well. So that's the same colour, and then that's clean water, and then I'm spreading it, that colour out. That one should be dry enough, or it's got a bit drier, so I can put in the detail on that. Okay, now I think I've let that dry a bit too long, so I'll have to very quickly do that dry and blend. Yeah, so clean, dry, blend. Make sure you come right to the whole of that area. Shouldn't have done that. So the dark one in here, a bit too brown, I'll put a bit more red in there, that's better. Now this is the tricky bit because I shouldn't have gone that far. See how it's spreading? That's today's deliberate mistake. No, today's mistake anyway, it's definitely not deliberate. Tiny bit darker there just so that we can keep that sharp line on the edge. When I do that, one side of the brush is in the dry paper and the other side's on the wet paper. I'll just spread this round, this should work. Most of the dark bits are just in here. So these are the real pale ones at this side. Drop and manoeuvre. Keep that beautiful softness that the watercolour has. Right, I'm going to have to let that bit dry. Do this one. It's not often I get a whole flower done. I'm usually doing bits all over. I wouldn't normally do the flowers and then come back. But for the purpose of this demonstration, I'll do it this way. Right, so this colour has got to match that colour. You see how it flows into the dry bit. Because with watercolour, it's the contrast between one part and the other that gives you the line. If you have to draw in a line, you've lost it. So it's a good point to just never to put a line. If you're a house, if you see a house and it all looks the same, both sides look the same. I've seen so many people put in a line. You don't put in a line, just make one side of the house darker. Even if you can't see it in your reference material, do that. That'll fix it. This looks a bit harsh, but there's a lot of things to go on top of that, so don't worry about that part at all. So that's the light bit. The tiniest bit darker along that edge. And that's what gives you the line, that tiny little bit there. That bit's all green. About this area. Lead in the dark a bit at the bottom. Tiny wee bit here, but not much. This is the point of the picture. So you don't want the same amount of detail in the whole area, because if everything's in the same amount of focus, you don't look in the right place. So what we're doing is creating a focus area, which is usually about there. Best just off centre, a third of the way up, which this is, you see. Right, we can leave that to dry. Okay, and this is the bit that I like doing. Let's make sure that's all dry here. Right, I'm going to wet. This is the same as doing the stones. So what I'm doing here is wetting the whole of that branch. I'll wet it with pink, you'll see what I'm doing. This is where the paint does it for you. So I'll get that dark brown that I was using and go along the edge, letting it bleed in. I'm not doing anything, all I'm doing is shoving that paint on and it's doing the rest. I'm going to add a little bit of my green to that brown, the same greens as I'm going to be using, and that's what gives you this dark. It's just a tip of your brush, and it gives that impression of bark. Got a bit of yellow in there as we go further up here. This is great fun with watercolour because it does everything for you. It's doing that effect. All you're doing is dropping on colour and letting it go, and it just makes such a lovely effect. There's a wee bit there, so I'll just pop that in there at this point. You're just dropping it in. Just be very sharp with the edges. Okay, there. It gives that effect. Do a bit down here as well while that's drying. This time I'll put the yellow on first. I don't want a solid line at the bottom. Just pull it up like that. And there's a bit in there as well. And back to this brown, round the edge. Both sides. I'll just bleed and do that for you. Green just to make the darker browns there. That'll give me that dark bit in there. So it's that darker area there that makes that part stand out. Same in there. This bit's still wet. Well, wasn't that easy? The greens up at the top, lemon yellow, lemon yellow in, give you a lovely bright effect there. Is that the only greens I've got? I'll have to do these one bits at a time. So what I want there is that to dry off a bit, and I've got sap green here. And as the sap green goes into the yellow, you get the lovely bright colour. And there. this other green, which is the undersea green, which is a darker olivey colour. That will go from there. Remember, that's the same colour I added in there. So that's why the whole thing harmonises. Up. Like that. Nice smooth lines that are going along. Let that bit dry. Now down here, I'm going to start. Now I'll wet the whole of this, I think, with the pink. There's a yellow bit, and then there's this pink. So pop that pink in there. So again, I'm wetting it with the base colour. And I've got that dark brown. And I'll add some of that undersea green to it as well. So we get that textured effect by dropping one in to the wet paint. A nice line around these, so I'm actually on the dry paint here to make that line. And then I'll be able to spread the rest back in. So we get a line where we need a line and no line where we don't. The bottom bit here, that is just green, because it's mixing now with the pink and the brown to make that effect. So we've got a line, but it's not too much of a line because of that technique. We'll do the same on this bit, I think. So I'll wet it with the pink colour. And then blend in a brown. This side I'm just going to use brown. And brown and green this side to give a darker effect. So wet and dry again, and a blend. Okay, right. Now, at the moment, this has got wet, and I'm going to have to stop for a bit because I can't move this part as I'd normally do. I'm leaning on the wet bit, and I'm going to damage some of the paint. So I'm going to leave it for half an hour and come back and do some more. Thank you. See you later.